There's still a couple of chairs up front. So again, good evening and welcome to tonight's Candidates Forum. My name is Vicki Hutchins. I'm the president of the Civic Association of Heritage Harbor, and I'm so glad to see what a great crowd we have here tonight. So go ahead, give yourselves a hand. So thank you all so much for coming. This is really, really nice to see everybody. And of course, we'll thank our candidates for coming tonight, and of course, thank all of the volunteers. I mean, you see them running around all over the place, helping you get settled and get squared away, and helping the candidates get settled. Yeah, that's awesome, please. So as you probably have figured out, tonight's forum is sponsored by the Civic Association in partnership with the League of Women Voters of Anne Arundel County. And they have been terrific to work with. I can't say enough about them, so I'm very, it's been quite a pleasure to work with them. Also, as you probably know, as with all events in this large auditorium, I'm to point out the emergency exits. So the door over there to my right, you probably know, has steps, so be aware of that. But the doors, of course, where you came in, as you know, go straight on out to the front patio. Also, I want to let you know, again, you probably figured this out, that we are recording this event tonight, and we will post them, we will upload, when I say we, I mean Jerry Clicken, will upload the video, the recording, to a number of sites, and we'll let you know as soon as we get that all squared away where you can find the video. And finally, I want to give a quick commercial. We're having another event on Wednesday night. Just a reminder, it's a very different event. It's a meet and greet. It'll be very casual, very informal, sort of like a social mixer. So I'd love to have you come back on Wednesday evening. And you've seen the League of Women Voters table back there. We will also have a table Wednesday night. We'll have registration and change of address forms, or just stop by and ask them questions. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Mary Gunther, who has very generously agreed to be the moderator for our forum. Mary will review the forum procedures and will introduce the candidates. Everybody should have a program, also prepared by the League, a great job. In the printed program, you can see Mary's bio, and I'd like to highlight a few details. She's a 1981 graduate of the Naval Academy, earning a degree in political science with an international focus. After fulfilling her naval service, Mary has volunteered for various education and service programs around the world. Currently, she serves on the executive team of the Institute for Cultural Communicators, overseeing the leadership development of adults and students in 4 countries. We're so pleased that Mary has agreed to be the moderator for this evening's program.
Well, tonight I'd like to give a brief introduction to our candidates who are here with us tonight, and then proceed to talk about some rules for tonight in order to have a great time together. And so first, let me start with Stuart Pittman. He's a husband, a father to 3, and a sibling to 6. He's also the current county executive serving the place where he grew up, Anne Arundel County. His home is in South County, where he fell in love with animals and nature and learned to farm and run a business. After graduating from the University of Chicago, he worked as a community organizer, first in the city's most challenged neighborhoods, then in Iowa, and later as director of campaigns for a national network of nonprofit organizations that brought investment to blighted communities. After a decade of that work, Stuart launched his farming and horse training business, which led to the founding of the Retired Racehorse Project, a national nonprofit that created a market-based system of transitioning thoroughbred racehorses to second careers and quality lives. In 2018, Stuart brought his 35 years of experience successfully running organizations to the job of county executive. And in his first 3 years, Stewart built an extraordinary team of public servants and addressed the problems that both parties have promised to confront. These accomplishments led to our county's first ever AAA bond rating from Moody's. Mr. Stewart Pittman, thank you. Jessica Hare attended George Washington University for college, where she received a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. And after graduation, Jessica worked as a project engineer, completing stormwater and sanitary sewer design, grading plans, erosion and sediment control plans, and pavement design. She spent time in the field as a resident engineer, solving on-site construction difficulties resulting from differing site conditions and other unforeseen conditions. Jessica attended a dual degree program at American University, where she received a law degree and a master's degree. And after receiving her law degree in 2011, Jessica spent 8 years as a government contracts litigation attorney at Fox Rothschilds LLP, Washington, D.C. And she's now a partner in Thompson Hine LLP's government contracts group. Jessica is active in the community as a volunteer with court-appointed special advocates in Anne Arundel County, CASA for Children, and she served as the Maryland State Republican Party legal counsel. And before the election, Jessica also served as a commissioner on the Anne Arundel County Commission for Women. Thank you. Now let's go ahead and for County Council, we have Lisa Rodvian. When Lisa's not busy with her duties as chair of the Anne Arundel County Council, she's a public school teacher in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. And while currently she teaches at Arundel Middle School in Odenton, she began her work in the field of education as an attorney. In the early 2000s, she worked for a law firm that helped state education agencies implement the requirements of the No Child Left Behind Act. Eventually, she learned that she wanted to work directly with young people and transitioned to a career in teaching. She earned her bachelor's from Cornell University, her master's in education from George Mason University, and her JD from the Catholic University of America, Columbus School of Law. Lisa lives in Annapolis, Maryland, with her husband, George Rodvian. Mike, you know, thank you. I said it right 5 times, and then as soon as it comes up, but you know what happens. Mike Pantelides is a lifelong county resident who lives with his wife, Alexandria, and his young son, John, Luca John. He's the former mayor of Annapolis. He has many accomplishments. Some legacy projects include building the Annapolis Renewable Energy Park, creating a plan to fix flooding, and the first mayor to inspect public housing. He credits his success by bringing the community together and working in a bipartisan fashion to help Annapolis. Mike is active in the community on many levels. He was appointed to serve on Governor Larry Hogan's Workforce Development Board. He's also a board member of the 21st Century Education Foundation, the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Visitors Bureau, part of the County Executive's Opioid Task Force, Legislative Committee for the Maryland Municipal League, and is the past vice chair of the Baltimore Regional Transit Board. Mayor Pantelides is also an Eagle Scout. Thank you all. So let's talk about some rules. So I have a visual aid. Please silence all cell phones. This is why I hold it up. So you can take that opportunity right now, if you don't have it silenced or on airplane mode, to go ahead and do that. That'd be awesome. Just a reminder that there's no camera or audio-visual equipment except for what is being officiated here by Heritage Harbor as the forum sponsors. All forms of records of forum proceedings and content are the property of the League of Women Voters and the Civic Association of Heritage Harbor Homeowners and may not be used without express permission. No campaign banners, signs, clothing, buttons allowed inside the auditorium except for what's on the table over there. And the candidate materials are available for you to observe after we're done. Please, during our forum tonight, hold all your applause until the end of the forum. And I ask also that that throughout our time that we just sort of hold a nonpartisan position to the response of the questions. You know, please don't by any shout or anything show approval or disapproval. We'll just give a rousing round of applause at the conclusion. That'd be great. The speaking order will rotate among our candidates tonight. So you might be aware there are some index cards on your seats, and so we're looking for you to provide the questions tonight. That is the only means by which questions will be asked. They'll be asked by you in written form and then passed to the outside aisle here. So from this side, don't pass your card over there. There'll be representatives and volunteers to pick up your card. If you have a question specific to the role, either to the county executive or county council, please put that at the top so we'll be aware. If it's just a general question, put general and we'll know that all 4 candidates can reply to that. So just a reminder, there will be no oral questions from the audience. They'll all be in written format, passed to the end of your aisles, and then picked up by volunteers tonight. Will be brought to our officials over here, our volunteers over here. Just a reminder that these written cards will be collected, and we ask that these questions not be personal, but specific to the candidates, the roles that they serve in. And our sponsored volunteers are going to review all questions and edit them for clarity, brevity, appropriateness, and any duplication. I'm going to again, invite our candidates to respond to each question, and we'll alternate the order as it goes about. And then recognizing that everybody has 2 minutes after this setting of rules, we'll go ahead and give our candidates a 3-minute opening remarks. We have a timekeeper in front to our panelists, our candidates. She'll be providing time signals for you. And then after those opening remarks on your part, we'll go ahead and move into the question time. So again, the time signals will go from 30 seconds to 15 seconds, and then there'll be a red stop. And we just ask that you stop speaking within 10 seconds relative to that order time. And so for our opening remarks tonight, we're going to start here with Jessica Hare, followed by Stuart Pittman, followed by Mike Pandelides, and then Lisa Rodby. And so I think the time is now. And I think the tech crew is going to turn it on and off for you.
Oh, excellent, because I am not super tech friendly. Is it on? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. My name is Jessica Hare. I am the current County Council representative for District 7. I'm honored to be here tonight, and I am running for County Executive to bring proactive, innovative, common sense leadership to Anne Arundel County government. I'm going to give you a few minutes background on me just before I head into specifics on the county. I actually got started in public service very young in life, at the ripe old age of 6. You see, my mom joined the military to pay for medical school, and so I was born on an Air Force base. And when I was very young, she worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. Childcare was expensive, so that meant many nights, my sisters and I, we went to work with Mom. And I remember in kindergarten on Wednesday evenings, she would come pick me up from school with my sister, and she would take us to the night clinic where she worked long into the evening. She brought 2 things with her. She brought crayons, and she brought sleeping bags. She'd park us in an exam room, and if we were quiet, we didn't fight. You know that crinkly paper that makes an absolutely terrible noise when you sit on it at the doctor's office? Okay, it makes a terrific coloring book. And so we were allowed to color there for as long as we wanted until we got tired and fell asleep. She'd take us home. She did this week in and week out. Eventually, she opened her own medical practice, and she taught me then this concept that hard work leads to limitless opportunities. That is what makes living in the United States so great. The concept that hard work leads to limitless opportunities. It's a lesson my husband and I try and teach our kids now. It's something that's always stuck with me. So fast forward a little bit, I got my second lesson in public service in college, where I studied civil engineering. Infrastructure. Civil engineering and infrastructure. And that's what your local government is too, right? It's all your infrastructure. It's your roads, it's your bridges, it's your sidewalks, it's your bike paths, it's your schools, it's your school capacity, it's your electricity. It's all infrastructure. Local government is quite literally where the rubber meets the road. And engineering is problem solving, right? You take an issue, you take a set of constraints, and you work at it until you find a common sense, innovative, efficient solution. That's what I bring to the Anne Arundel County Executive's Office. A couple of quick statistics for you. In the last couple of years, gun crimes have increased 45%. Violent crime is up 5.1% year over year from 2021 to 2020. It's going to take proactive hands-on leadership to fix these problems, and that is my promise to you. I will bring accountability to the county government. I will bring proactive, thoughtful, hard-working, problem-solving attitudes to the county government. And more than anything else, I will ensure that every individual, every family, and every business knows that my team is invested in our shared success as a community. I look forward to a detailed discussion this evening about crime, education, taxes, spending, ways that we can work together as a community, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you for holding your applause. I appreciate it.
So I am, of course, Stuart Pittman, and I vividly remember being here 4 years ago, sitting next to County Executive Steve Shue, and I was terrified. It takes a lot of courage to do this. I talked then about the growth of Anne Arundel County and how it impacted our lives. I talked about education, public safety, and maybe most importantly, the infrastructure and how that was impacted by growth. Our roads, our schools, our parks, our libraries, and our senior centers. I told you that my 35 years of experience running nonprofits and businesses and my decade of work as a community organizer would suit us well in an uncertain time. I promised more transparency and community engagement in government than this county had ever seen, and that hard things only happen when we all engage in the process. So these last 4 years have been challenging. We lost over 1,000 of our neighbors to a deadly virus, and we mobilized as a community against it. Our death rate was half that of counties in Maryland that did not take the pandemic as seriously as we did. We invested in our nonprofit sector and our social service agencies to protect families from the economic impacts of the pandemic. We stopped the exodus of our best teachers and first responders by raising their pay to the regional average. We passed the most effective forest conservation bill in the state, and we said no to bad development and yes to redevelopment. We kept our taxes the lowest in the region by far, while adding 100 new police officers, 50 new firefighters, and 500 new teachers. We created Open Arundel so that every resident of our county could monitor the performance metrics of every department of county government, and we hosted over 100 town halls to engage residents in budgeting, land use planning, transportation planning, and mental health services. We changed our county slogan by adding the words "for all" when our political divisions became racial divisions and hate bias incidents were on the rise. And finally, we overcame the partisan divide on our county council in our last budget with a 6-1 vote to reduce taxes, reduce borrowing, and grew our revenue reserve fund, setting us up for whatever economic downturns come before us. So we did what you asked of us. We did what we said we would do, and I look forward to spending the next hour or so talking about that record and talking about what's at stake in this election. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir. This would be
Good evening.
You got it.
Does it work? There we go. Second time's a charm. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Mike Panelides. I'm a lifelong county resident, and I live here with my wife, Alexandra, and my 2-year-old son, Luca John. I'm the former mayor of Annapolis, and I'm running to make real change here in Anne Arundel County, and I would like to be your councilman. I'm going to tell you about why I'm running and my vision for the county. I'm running because I love this county, and I have a passion for helping people. I'm running on a platform of change because I believe we cannot accept the status quo. I want to tell you about some of my accomplishments as mayor and how I have a proven track record to help people. During my time as mayor, I kept my promise to not raise taxes, stopped overdevelopment, and fully supported our police. I've led a city government managing over 600 people with a $100 million budget. That experience gives me the knowledge to run county government and to fix the problems that we're going to face. I'm the only mayor over a 16-year period to not raise the property tax rate. We've all felt the pain of high taxes and record inflation. All of you feel it at the grocery store, you feel it at the gas pump, you feel it when you get medicine. That's why if I'm elected, I'm going to do everything I can to lower your taxes and take that burden off of you. You know, I always tell people, I was door knocking here this weekend, I say the best part about running for office is meeting people. And through my career, I've had a chance to talk to thousands of people. and it gives you a unique understanding about what people actually care about in the community. You know, the number one thing I've heard from people is crime. It's the single most important issue I hear from people. They don't feel safe in their house and in their communities. Right here in District 6, we've had 20 people shot since November. The crime is unacceptable, and we have to do more to address it. Just want to tell you a few things I did as mayor to show I can get things done. First, we had record funding for public safety. The second thing we did is we partnered with the state police to help reduce gun crime by working with their task force. We made a lot of changes to fix the city. And I believe Anne Arundel County is in the same position the city was 4 years ago, and we need to make record major changes. You know, over the last 4 years, they've raised your property taxes. So it costs you more to go to bed every night. They've raised your income taxes. Every time you make money, they're taking more out of it. Violent crime is on the rise. Overdevelopment is happening. And we need to change course. When I'm elected, I pledge to make our community safer, improve public education, and put our families first in all decisions. I look forward to making real change and working with each of you on how we can make the community better. You can trust me to do what I say because I've done it before, and I look forward to sharing my vision with you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Rodbian, and I'm the current councilwoman for District 6 in Anne Arundel County. I'm also the current council chair. I'm especially proud of the work that I've done on the council over the last 4 years. I came to this office, as you heard in my introduction, because I'm a public school teacher. And I was encouraged by many friends around me to run for office because they believed that I had the right background to make changes that we needed to improve our schools. We were losing teachers left and right to our neighboring counties because our pay wasn't competitive. We hadn't made needed upgrades in our facilities. And over the last 4 years, we've made our teacher salaries competitive with our neighboring counties, and we've made major improvements in fixing the backlog of construction projects in our public schools. Even the school that I work in, which was built in 1961, finally got a desperately needed 10 classroom addition. But there are projects that have happened like that all over the county. In addition to my work on the public schools, I worked with the county executive and the rest of the council to increase the staffing to appropriate levels, both in the police force and the fire department. You may not have realized that 4 years ago, we had fire trucks going out sometimes with 1 or 2 professional firefighters. And often we had neighbors step up to help those firefighters battle blazes. We're making big progress towards improving our emergency management call center. We're updating and making upgrades that will bring us into the 21st century. So when you make a call to the 911 center, the dispatcher will have the training to get you whatever services you need, rather than having to direct you fire, EMS, or what's the other one? Police. Police, fire, EMS. Now they can all handle, the training will allow them to handle no matter what type of call. We've done a lot of important land use things. We've made decisions about development that we would like to be smart about the development, that we need to stop sprawl. One of the things that I think many people love about Anne Arundel County, and it's one of the things that drew me here and has encouraged me to stay here, is we have beautiful green spaces, we have beautiful waterfronts, and they need our protection. They get protection from the federal government and from the state government, but there are important things that we need to do at the county level as well. And protecting some of those vast green spaces, like the Crownsville State Hospital Center is a huge one, and that one now belongs to the county, and that will be ours forever. I've also done work in the arena of affordable housing. We've created over 700 new units of affordable housing, which you may not be thinking about except when you see your property tax bill, because when the price of housing goes up in the community, the price of your your property tax goes up as well. At the same time, we've managed to stay the 5th lowest property and income tax county in the state. And so I look forward to continuing that work that I'm doing for another 4 years.
And what I'd like to do is these are general questions. And so I'm going to go ahead and reverse the order and allow Lisa Rodbian to go first, and then I'll work with Mike Pantelides, and then Stuart Pittman, and then Jessica Hare. So This question is, what is your stance, and again, 2 minutes on this question for everyone, what is your stance on police accountability boards?
So this is something we actually worked on earlier in this calendar year. In 2021, the state passed a requirement that every county would have to come up with a system of police accountability that was designed around a framework that the state created. I believe that we actually created a very nice balance in terms of making sure that there was fairness for police officers, but that there also was going to be real accountability and not always just the police policing themselves. I worked with my colleague in District 1, Sarah Lacey, to improve some things that we thought would have made it a stronger sense of accountability, but those unfortunately did not pass. But I still think the end product was still is still stronger than what we've had, and creates a balance where police officers will have a fair process, but they will also be, their conduct when it's called into question will be examined thoroughly. And I think that that's really important, that we strike the balance. And that's all I have to say, so I'll just go ahead and give it. I didn't realize that was time.
Our police department, as I mentioned earlier, crime in the community is the single most important issue that I hear from people. And when you think about it, the police chief recently testified in front of the county council. They said retirements and people quitting it is an all-time high, and recruitment is an all-time low. And a lot of that has to do with the way we treat our police officers, the lack of respect that we give them. You can do things to improve accountability. As mayor of Annapolis, I was the first person to implement a body camera program, which helped build transparency as a lot of people wanted it. And the police officers were actually in favor of it. And you would think they wouldn't. Why would you want to be recorded when you're working? But the thing about it was, it proves them right 99% of the time. It shows somebody makes a complaint that they're doing the right thing. As we come here today, a lot of what I want to talk about is myself. Whenever I campaign, when I talk to people, I'm talking about myself and my vision. I try not to talk about my opponent that often because I was going to run no matter what happened. I believe I have the passion and leadership to do it. But I think there's one distinction we need to make within this. On the police accountability review, my opponent had sponsored a bill that would have banned police officers from serving on the board, but allowed felons to. So, for example, people with a criminal record would now be able to sit there and judge police officers on their conduct and have subpoena power to call them into question. I think things like that are demoralizing to the police and hurts morale. So that's not something I'm in favor of. And as she mentioned, it was rejected even by her own colleagues. So thank you.
Thank you for holding your applause. Thank you so much.
So my father was Assistant Secretary of Defense for Civil Defense during the Cold War, and he taught me and my siblings that public safety and protecting the public is the #1 obligation of government. So when I came in, that was a sacred #1 thing. I was pleased to see that the Anne Arundel County Police Department is probably the best in the country, or one of the best. Now, the question was about the Police Accountability Board, which is a state mandate. A state bill passed this year. Every county in Maryland is doing one. The key for us was to make sure that the community was engaged, because the positives of the Police Accountability Board are that the public can engage and be part of a process, and that there is more transparency about the process, which I think is a good thing, because I think our police department does a good job and can withstand that transparency. The bill that we passed, actually, the mandate that you not have police officers on it was actually part of the state law, so we had no choice about that. But the work that we did was engaging residents. Some criticized us for engaging people too much and allowing a conversation to happen that was somewhat divisive, but I believe that that conversation should happen. It has happened. Our police officers came out of it happy with me. I'm getting the endorsement from the Fraternal Order of Police. It hasn't been announced yet, but it's there. It'll happen next week, as well as the firefighters. But most importantly, we need to engage and be able to have conversations about what is the best kind of policing. We have great community policing in our county. And I think we did a poll, and most of our residents support the work of our police department. But at the same time, they are an institution of county government. And like every other department of county government, we want them to provide excellent services. And by having community engagement in the process, that's how we get there.
I'd like to touch on two pieces of police accountability and respond a little bit to what Mr. Pittman just said about endorsements. There are a couple. We did have the Police Accountability Review Board hearings in front of the County Council, and the Chief of Police did come out and say police recruitment is at an all-time low and police retirements are at an all-time high. In Mr. Pittman's opening remarks, he mentioned that he added 100 police officers to the county over the last couple of years. I was there for those budget presentations. I went back into those budgets and counted. I count 18. Previous county executive added 54, and he did it without raising taxes. So if we want to talk about supporting our police and making our streets safer and our communities safer, we can do it, and we can do it without raising taxes. In terms of the police accountability, they enjoy the transparency as well. I spoke to the FOP a little while ago, and they told me also they like the body cameras because it gives a completely unbiased view of what transpired that evening. I was pleased to vote in favor of the body camera program a couple of years ago on the county council, and I've been pleased to support our police every step of the way in making sure that they feel like they have a board that's going to be unbiased and look at any situation and alleged complaint in a manner that is fair to all parties, and that individuals in the community who feel like they've been aggrieved have a venue to voice those concerns. In terms of the endorsement, it's awfully easy to endorse the person who signs your paycheck. So I'm not surprised by the fact that the current county executive is going to get the endorsement of the FOP. But I will note that just because the endorsement's coming from the FOP, that doesn't necessarily mean that individuals in the police department or the fire department feel the same way. So please go ahead and talk to folks and do your research when you're talking to them. I will just note that the current county executive on his Facebook has labeled police assassins in the past, and I think that we can do better than that when it comes to crime and police accountability.
Starting, Mr. Pittman, with you, if you can start us off on this round as I alternate folks. What is your stance on ballot question B, which seeks to increase the number of term limits from 2 to 3 for both county executive and city council?
Well, it actually only increases it from 2 to 3 for county council. It does not do it for county executive. And I'm glad that there are term limits for county executive. I probably shouldn't say this, but after 8 years, I'll be ready to go back to the farm and reconnect with the horses and do that work again. I do want to, since I have a few more seconds left, respond to some of the points that were just made. What I was talking about is the sworn officer numbers that were under 700 when I took office and are close to 800 now. The FOP and the police department keep very careful track of that, because while the previous county executive created 58 positions, they never got filled. And so there is a charge that it is harder to recruit police officers now, and it is harder, so we work harder at it. But the fact that we got to almost 800, and the International Association of Police Chiefs says we should be at 825, and we're almost there, that to me is a success that we should celebrate. And I would love to see where I called police officers assassins. We can talk about that later. I don't believe that's the case.
Jessica Hare, on the particular, sorry for the question that was provided, but the term limits issue.
Sure, yes, I agree with the county executive. Actually, it was on the county council, increasing it from 2 terms to 3 terms. We had a long discussion about this at the county council, because the way charter amendments come before, the way ballot questions get on the ballot, there's 2 ways. Either you can get a supermajority vote on the county council, so 5 members vote in favor of a charter amendment, or you can get 10,000 signatures from the general public. And so in this case, a council member put forth, it had gone through the Charter Review Commission, and they had recommended that we consider this issue. So a county council member put forth a piece of legislation that would increase from 2 terms to 3 terms the maximum time that a county council member could serve. And so we debated it on the council. You know, the first term, you spend a while getting up to speed and learning different areas in the community and how best to serve your constituents. In the second term, you can really kind of dig into it a bit, and then they said, well, in the 3rd term, then you really can kind of see some of your projects come to fruition. And so that was the argument that this council member had made. And we all said, you know what, let's put it to the voters. Let's see what the voters think. And so I voted in favor of that ballot question to be put before you all, and I'm very curious to see how you all vote on it in the fall. And, thank you for coming out to vote.
Thanks. Ms. Rodbian, term limits.
Yes, term limits for the county council. Like my colleague, I actually felt similarly that this was a decision best left to the voters. So by voting for the resolution, it's on the ballot for you to decide. I think there are some advantages of having term limits. You know, we make sure that we always have fresh ideas coming into the county council. But as my colleague mentioned, you know, there is value to having the experience. So, you know, serving a third term would allow you to, you know, take that experience and use it for another 4 years. There is a very steep learning curve just on learning the names of the individuals that you need to call for this kind of issue when a constituent reaches out, or that kind of issue when a constituent reaches out. And so, you know, I think there's value in having longevity. I'm not even sure if that were a possibility if I'd run for a third term, because it is an enormous amount of work. But I feel like this is something that we can let the voters decide, and you make the decision that you believe is right for Anne Arundel County.
I'll make it. Hello? There you go. I will make it short, sweet, and to the point. It's before the voters, and I'm going to respect the will of the voters. So whatever you decide, we're going to live with. Thank you.
Thanks. And while you have a hot mic there, population.
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can do. You know, we have a great Department of Aging and Disability that offers a number of services throughout Anne Arundel County. And I think particularly we have a lot of seniors that live in here, and it's something we should expand. I think, you know, we have a senior center in Annapolis, which we're very fortunate to have. And I think we need to do more to help our seniors. So yes, I think there's a lot of prime opportunities that Anne Arundel County can do to help them. Thank you.
And Lisa Rodbians. Yep.
Yeah, I think there's always more that can be done, but I've actually been really, oh, hello, okay. I think there's always more that you can do, but I'm actually really proud of the work that we've done over the last 4 years, especially in light of COVID. Our Department of Aging and Disabilities did things like make sure that seniors that live in remote areas that no longer could get, could get to a senior center for a meal, because a lot of those were closed during parts of the pandemic, made sure that seniors still had food and could get food delivered to their houses. We have a program where if a senior is living by themselves, they can get a phone call from, I believe it's the fire department, to just check a wellness phone call to make sure that, are you okay? Is there anything you need? We have wonderful senior centers. We've invested money in expanding and improving those facilities and expanding the offerings. It's actually unbelievable to me how many offerings are available. So if you're not already familiar with the extensive things that are available for seniors in the Department of Aging and Disabilities, go check out their website, because there's online forums, there's classes, there's discounts, there's all kinds of things that you can take advantage of. I know Heritage Harbor has them built into your community, but there are lots of great things in the county too. Fitness classes, you name it, we've got it.
Jessica Hare.
Thank you. Oops, I don't think this is on yet. Hello? There we go. Thank you. We do a great job with a number of services right now. I volunteered with the Department of Aging and Disabilities to deliver some of this food and make sure folks had it over the last few years. I actually think there's a couple of cool ways that we could partner even more and do even more. Transportation is a huge issue, and I think that making sure we expand our transportation offerings for an aging population is critical. The South County Connector in particular, that whole call and ride van program that you can take down in South County has been wonderfully successful. I think we may need to consider expanding some of that. I also think we need to implement more programs where the aging population and our youngest generation do things together, because a number of studies have shown that both of those populations benefit immensely when they work together on things. I also think there are things that we should be doing with the state to partner for some retiree tax credits of sorts, help make some of the insurance deductibles that you get one time, make them on an annual basis instead. There's a number of ways that I think we can improve the lives and the services and how the government interacts with our aging population over the next few years. Thanks.
So I think I've attended every senior center in the county and had lunch there. The best time to do it is around the holidays. Right now, we're rebuilding the senior center in Edgewater, the South County Senior Center, and the Arnold Senior Center. It's going to be major renovations. So the senior centers are in our capital budget, and we're continuing to do that work. The taxi voucher program, we did expand. We used some of our federal money for that. The transportation program for seniors was actually taken out at the end of the last administration from the Department of Aging and Disabilities and put into transportation. Pam Jordan, who some of you know, was Director of Aging and Disabilities and now is our Deputy CAO for Health and Human Services. We promoted her to all of that work. Was really upset about that because transportation wasn't as responsive to the seniors. So that's back into the Department of Aging and Disabilities where it belongs, where they know you. I have to say that during COVID, there was no department of county government that I was more impressed by than the Department of Aging and Disabilities. The calls that they made to seniors at their home to check on them, if they had their information, and these were often the seniors that used the senior centers, to make sure that they were getting food, to make sure that they had somebody coming in to help them. And we were able to deliver in ways, everybody's job description changed during COVID, and we had to figure out how to serve people in new ways. And the Department of Aging and Disabilities was fantastic about that. I agree that the call and ride system in South County is excellent, and we are actually expanding it into Glen Burnie this week as we speak. The other thing is just walkability. Our county was built for cars, and we have so many neighborhoods where there are no sidewalks, and we have very little public transportation. And when I work with our Department of Transportation to do Move Anne Arundel and Walk and Roll, our new plan for that, I always think about the seniors and what does it take for seniors to get where they need to go. So it's very important work to me.
Thank you. A few questions here, so I'm going to start with Jessica here and then move down. But this idea of keeping new building down and open spaces, and yet the construction in the area, which appears to have some traffic problems in construction. So would you just address the growth and construction around Annapolis and the county?
Absolutely. So, look, I've dedicated my life, my career to infrastructure, right? And so as an engineer, I fully understand the problems that occur when you have overdevelopment and you overbuild somewhere and the overwhelming issues that creates for roads and schools and things like that. I know just around the corner from here on Riva Road, which already has, quite a bit of traffic on it, there are 508 new high-density apartments going up. And in fact, that project under the current administration got a density bonus. I believe they're maxed out at 44 dwelling units per acre or something. I think they actually used 42. 508 units are going in right there. There's a parking garage that's going on that same lot that's going to hold 793 cars. Okay, I don't consider this smart development, especially because the Annapolis school right here is closed. Okay, and they were given an exemption from the adequate public facilities for that school. So to me, any kind of growth has to be adequately supported by the infrastructure around it. And that adequate public facilities, we have requirements in the county for a reason, and it means your school capacity is available. It means your roads can handle it. It means, flooding is not going to occur because of the building. It means there are sidewalks that folks can walk on when it's there. It means all of this, and it does not mean giving these kinds of huge density bonuses. The project that was going to go there before that was the Wegmans, if anybody remembers the Wegmans that was shut away, right? And they were going to redevelop the site and use the existing parking lot and bring with them 300 jobs, all of which were going to pay pretty well. So that's the kind of redevelopment that I think makes a lot of sense, particularly in that area. We want to offer better quality of life services and not super high density residential where we can't handle it. Thank you.
Going this way or around?
Yes, to you, sir.
So you remember me from the last campaign, and you've seen the cartoons in the Capitol with me hugging the tree and the developer on the other side with the axe. And I might have even gone too far in some of the talk and some of the rhetoric against developers. I was very angry about the fact that developers were funding political campaigns at such a high rate that they would not only do the maximum of $6,000, but then all of their LLCs would do it, their family would do it, their employees would do it. We have a situation now of $250,000 from one developer to a candidate, and I saw that in the previous county executive, and I saw decisions get made that reflected the contributions. So nobody was surprised when we came in and we put up the green notices at Plan and Zoning, and we said, we're not going to give these modifications on environmental issues. We're going to enforce the adequate public facilities laws, both for traffic and schools in the county. Now, I do believe in this thing that we call smart growth, that if we're going to protect the open space, it's not necessarily a terrible thing to have density in a town center where you're trying to create walkability, or where you're doing transit-oriented development at a train station or where there's transit so that you get cars off the road. If people can live close to where they work and where they shop, there's a whole lot less traffic than if all three of those are in separate areas. So that's the agenda, the agenda that is Plan 2040, the general development plan that our communities came together and built. We have a regional planning process that is community-driven, that we created 9 regions around the county so that we democratize this project where residents have a greater say in this. You'll notice the theme of engaging residents in everything that we do. I'm the old community organizer, and that's what I believe works. And as far as development goes, we have to be smart about it, and we have to protect our natural resources and improve our quality of life.
For our county council candidates, I have a different question. So that was for the county executive, and that is starting with Mr. Pantelidis. What have you done, or what will you do, I guess, in your case, to reduce the property tax burden? Most of us are on fixed and limited incomes.
Well, thank you for that question, whoever put it in. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's the second biggest issue that I hear from people. The cost of living, the high property taxes that we pay to live in here. One of the things I'm extremely proud of is my record as mayor of Annapolis. As I said, I was the only mayor over a 16-year period to not raise the tax rate. And we did it by cutting the waste out of government. You know, before I was elected mayor, we had 2 rounds of property tax increases. They doubled water bills, they cut trash back to once a week, and it cost $100 million to borrow payroll. So when I got elected mayor, they sat me down the first day and said, you have a $7.5 million deficit and you have to fix it. And we did it by being smart on the budget and cutting waste. I think Anne Arundel County is going to have to deal with that same situation soon. You know, if you think about it, we got a lot of money from the federal government for COVID relief. That money's going away soon. We cannot sustain the high taxes that we've seen in this county for long. Seniors like you are dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. Every single person has to make cuts, and it's time the government does the same. There's probably not a person in this room that hasn't been hurt financially from record high inflation. So like I said, I've done it before and I can do it again. And I'm asking you to give me a chance to go into county government, go through the budget line by line, and cut the waste out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to start with the premise of this question. We actually have one of the lowest property taxes in the state of Maryland. There's 24 jurisdictions, and I believe we're the 5th from the bottom. So we actually do have a relatively low property tax burden. I think whenever we talk about cuts, we have to talk about cuts to county revenue. We have to talk about what cuts to services are we willing to make. And I don't think we're in a position to cut fire or police or emergency management. We're certainly not in a position to cut at our public schools where we're short 300 teachers and we've had a difficult time recruiting bus drivers, custodial workers, cafeteria workers, and in many of the departments across the county, recruiting is difficult. So I challenge the premise that we need to to bring things down even lower. We're actually quite low already. And just with respect to budgets, I think it's important that we're honest here about budgets. My opponent did indeed lower the taxes in the city of Annapolis, but it's one thing to have that in your budget, and it's another thing to actually spend the way it is in your budget. When you spend things off the books and you spend out of your fund balance, you're not really being truthful about your property or your tax cuts if you're spending beyond what is actually in your budget. And I'm proud to say that we have done that at the county level. We have not spent beyond what is in our budget. In fact, we've had fund balance, I believe, every year. And I think the county executive can confirm that. Yes, so we've had fund balance and been very responsible with our finances and not cut our costs so low that we're not able to meet the needs of the people in the county and provide the services that I believe we all actually want.
To extend that, and just to extend that, is in reviewing the budget, this is a different question with a slight angle to it. What criteria do you use to determine if a budget item is a want or a need? And we'll go both to the county executive and county council. Going first with you. Go ahead, Ms. Rodvians, and then, we're going to switch order.
I think COVID taught us a lot about wants versus needs. Things that we maybe thought were wants turned out to be needs, like our recreation and parks. The demand for visits to our county parks increased dramatically. So I'm questioning what parts of our county government are really wants. We need strong public schools. We need public safety, both police and firefighters and Office of Emergency Management. We need our departments of aging and disabilities. So, and we need recreation and parks. I'm sure there's other, we need our infrastructure. So if someone, I'm always willing to hear if someone says there's a part of our county budget that really is a want and we should consider, maybe this isn't something we should be spending taxpayer dollars, but there's so many things the county can only do, or that we can only do as the 590,000 residents of the county, if we pool our money together. We can only have excellent public schools and public safety if we pool our money together in the form of taxes and spend it responsibly. So I'm all ears. This is a thing where I will listen to constituents. If you think this is frivolous spending, we can have a conversation.
Yes.
So I want to go. Try one more time.
Keep talking.
There we go. So I want to go back to something my opponent said about the budget when I was mayor of Annapolis. As mayor, you're one of 9 votes on the budget. And we fully funded our police and fire department, and we made smart cuts. This thing about spending out of fund balance is not exactly accurate. The new mayor came in, had a different way of doing it, but nothing we had done was wrong. To put it in perspective, politicians talk about what we think is the right way to do things, but we get graded objectively. There's bond rating agencies out of New York that say, how are you spending your money? And they upgraded the city of Annapolis. They said, you're doing a good job with the money that you have. Now, when you talk about wanting the need, the hardest part of being mayor was saying no to people. People would come in every day. I used to have an open door session. The first Tuesday of the month, anyone could come in and talk to me about any issue they wanted, and you would get asked for everything. And unfortunately, you have to tell a lot of people no. But when you look at waste, and this might be a question later that we're going to get, there's a number of things that have made the front page of the Capitol newspaper about waste in county government, reckless spending coming out of your pockets. And just one of the examples, which I'm sure we'll talk about, was the crack pipes that Anne Arundel County had passed out. During the COVID epidemic, it was front page news at the Capitol that Anne Arundel County Health Department spent thousands of dollars buying crack pipes and handed them out in predominantly African American communities. And it wasn't until the leaders of the NAACP spoke up and demanded it stop that the county had done that. So that's just one of many examples of Anne Arundel County wasting money. Thank you.
Let me just start with the crack pipes. That was a state program, and neither the health officer nor I knew that it was going on, and when we found out it was going on, we stopped it immediately. It was part of a state program where they provide harm reduction, but that's minor compared to the overall budget. I wouldn't say that we only fund things that we need. I could make an argument that a lot of the things that we have in our county budget we don't need, but that we should have. The way I do it, and I'll just tell you how the budget process works. We do town halls. The charter says the county executive has to do 2 town halls every budget year. We do 1 in each council district, and I make sure to do it sitting next to the council person from that district. So Jessica Hare and I have done 4 of them in District 7 because that's the district she represents. So we've done 29. We added an extra Spanish-speaking one this year. And we hear from people what they think is important. The next thing that we do is we have revenue projections that are coming in from our budget office based on how the economy is going, and we're following those through the fall and into the spring. And then we have every department of county government come in with, first they look at what it takes to provide the services they have already, and then they make proposals for things to improve services. And those are the ones, the supplemental budget increases. We reject most of them, but some of them we approve, and we do it based on whether it's going to increase efficiency, whether it's going to increase services that people are asking for, whether it's going to continue to make Anne Arundel County what I like to call our slogan, the best place for all. And it is not just what we need. It is what improves the quality of our life and makes this a place that people want to live. So it's a fascinating and somewhat intimidating process the first year to sit down and try to do a budget. this large, but we have a whole budget office with analysts that work with each of the departments, and then they bring to us the bottom lines, and we make the tough decisions at the end, and it is very difficult.
I think this all comes down to a governing mindset, actually, when you talk about what is a want versus a need. I believe in limited government. I believe that the government functions best when it is governing least, and we are doing the most we can to facilitate the community's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, your quality of life, right? But that doesn't always mean more money, okay? There are a lot of problems you can solve by finding efficiencies, not by increasing taxes, not by spending more money, and not by increasing the size of government. The county budget has increased by over $500 million with a B over the last 4 years. Okay, some of that is one-time money from the federal government. If you take the one-time money out, it's gone up by about $300 million. That's a lot of money. Okay, and so ask yourself this question as you go into the voting booth in November. Do you feel like you have $300 million of more services and better quality of life and better responsiveness from the government than you did 4 years ago? Okay, because that's where I come in. I say, okay, we have more money of yours than we should have. We need to return some of it. Okay, we need to reverse these tax increases that you've seen. How can we do that? Let's find some efficiencies. Anyone here who pays your water bill online, okay, you can't set it to auto pay. You can't. You have to physically go in every single month and pay your water bill online, and then the county charges you a fee for it. There is software that we can have that would allow you to set it to auto pay. And then the folks who are in the finance office who spend all that time sending out bills, trying to track down bills, trying to make sure everything gets paid, manually entering data, they wouldn't have to do that. And they'd be freed up to do other services, other things in the county, focus their time elsewhere. So there's a lot of things here, I think, that are inefficiently run that we can do better with. And that's where you go evaluating what's a want versus what's a need, and how can the government run most efficiently as you pursue life, liberty, and happiness.
Thank you. Question talks about addressing past and present future environmental harms that have damaged the bay and led to street flooding. And Mike Pantelides, if you would kick us off with that question. So addressing past, present, future environmental harms that have damaged the bay and led to street flooding. Thank you.
Well, one of the most important things we can do is fixing our environment. You know, when I was an Eagle Scout, as you mentioned at the beginning, we always had a motto, which was leave it better than you found it, right? And I think that's something very important that we can do. We all know that the number one issue that affects the Chesapeake Bay is stormwater runoff. And most of that comes from irresponsible development and overdevelopment. You know, as Councilwoman Hare mentioned earlier, there's a project in our district, District 6, that was supposed to be a Wegmans, a grocery store that everyone wanted. Instead, they're going to put up 508 living units there. They got an exemption from schools. The schools are overcrowded. They say, let's ignore that. We're going to put them anyway. 500 houses on Riva Road, one of the worst in the county, is not responsible development. More cars are not the answer to fix the traffic problems. Now, going back to the environment, I want to tell you about something we did, which is the Annapolis Renewable Energy Park. Something I'm very proud about. We had an old landfill in the city of Annapolis, literally a pile of trash. So what did? We did what 90 other places have done across the country. We leased it to a private developer, and they put up 54,000 solar panels. So now the city of Annapolis has 54,000 solar panels on a closed landfill. It's making the city $4 million over the next 20 years at no cost to the taxpayers. It's one of the things we did. We also bought land that was slated for development and turned it into recreation space for everyone else. We passed a Forest Conservation Act in the city, and I try to govern in a bipartisan fashion, but I do have to say, when I ran for mayor in 2017, I'm probably one of the only Republicans to ever get the endorsement from the League of Conservation Voters because of my strong stance that I took on the environment. Thank you.
Would you mind? I just want to make sure I respond fully to the question as you asked it, if you wouldn't mind repeating it.
I am happy to.
Thank you.
How will you address past and present and future environmental, how would you address past and present and future environmental harms that have damaged the bay and led to street flooding?
All right, thank you. So one of these things that I take from my youth is the expression, think globally and act locally. Some of the things that are contributing to street flooding are well beyond what simply the local impact that has occurred in Anne Arundel County. We have impact that goes far beyond. However, it is still important for us to act locally. One of the things that I've done, actually, the county executive and I kind of both did it in a way, was commit to turning our county fleet of cars to 100% renewable resources in about a decade. We also passed, at the time, the strongest Forest Conservation Act in the state. And we've only been surpassed because we set a high bar, and then there were a couple other counties that decided they were going to go further. The League of Conservation Voters didn't endorse in this election, but the Sierra Club did, and I earned their endorsement. I'm very proud of that. With respect to development, we have two ways of developing. We can, if you take 1,000 units of housing and you spread them out and give each unit of housing an acre, you will have used up 1,000 acres of land. But if you take those housing units and you create density, you can put those same 1,000 units of housing in a much, much smaller area by building vertically, by keeping things attached, create desperately needed affordable housing, and stop sprawl, leave our green space intact. And I believe that the smart growth strategies that we've used in the county help achieve that. And when we talk about traffic, if people have to drive from far away to get to their jobs in the city of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, we're going to have more traffic. We need people to have places to live in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. So as Ms. Gunther mentioned at the beginning, after college, I actually did a lot of work doing super sexy things like designing sanitary sewer and stormwater controls. So I've spent a lot of time working with stormwater and flooding issues. And in District 7, with Shadyside and the Mayo Peninsula, we have huge issues with flooding in homes. I want to touch on just a couple of things over the last 4 years that I've personally worked on and supported to try and assist with some of this pollution into the bay. The first was a series of bills that I actually worked on to help convert failing septic systems to public sewer for places, and to incentivize homeowners with those failing septic systems to do so, because the third leading cause of nitrogen pollution in the bay is from failing septic systems. So I was super happy to put together a series of bills on that and get unanimous or near unanimous support from all of my council colleagues on those bills back in 2019, I believe it was. The second piece is there are some individual things that you can do in various areas. I've actually worked very closely with Southern District Roads to help put some check valves in place on the Mayo Peninsula, where folks are getting a combination of rainwater and also tidal flooding. And so this helps allow the various swales to drain properly. On the County Council, we also had a bill that actually held developers responsible for longer. We made them put in a 3-year bond instead of a 2-year bond on some of the development projects to really make sure that the stormwater was functioning properly. Moving forward, I think there are some really cool technological things we need to explore, managed aquifer recharge, things like that can help. And we really need to make sure that we are holding folks accountable to these issues. We are so blessed in this county to have over 500 miles of shoreline, but we also need to recognize that that means we have an obligation to protect the waters here. And so I look forward to more common sense, efficient ideas like the septic to sewer conversion, which, by the way, we did with no new taxes or fees. So thank you very much. Mr. Pittman.
So I love talking about this, so I'll try to keep it down to 2 minutes, but it won't be easy. So it's true. I go out and I've been, just in the last 2 weeks, I've been to 3 different communities where new development was built nearby. And they had stormwater plans that were implemented, and they complied with county code, but they weren't working. And we have actually a requirement that when you do new development, you not only have to comply with the plan that you do, but off-site damage you're responsible for. And we're going to have to be testing that in the courts, I'm afraid. We created a stormwater strike team at Inspections and Permits for the first time to go off-site because nobody was looking off-site. On the new development that was proposed, I don't know if you remember my campaign mailers from before 4 years ago, where there was a site in the Mayo Peninsula where they had clear-cut all of the trees. It was under the old Forest Conservation Act, and then found out that there were 3 wetlands on the site that the developer had never told anybody about, and they did a stop work order. Of course, they figured out how to get around that because they already had their permits, but it's absolutely essential that inspections and permits and planning and zoning require all of these environmental features to be identified and that they don't do modifications on them. The Watershed Protection and Restoration Program of Anne Arundel County is probably the best in the state. We really do restore streams so that they don't continue when the water comes off of these development sites. They don't continue to cut into the soil and then take that sediment into the bay. We are the first county in the state, maybe anywhere that I know of, whole jurisdiction that is all a no discharge zone, other than the Patuxent River, if you count that. But we just got that done this year. We applied for it at the beginning of my term and finally got that done. Discharge from boats, I'm talking about sewage that comes off of boats. And then maybe the most important thing that we've done is a thing called the Green Infrastructure Master Plan. It did not get complete support on the council. I voted for it. It's to protect 30% of our land mass by the year 2030 in perpetuity.
Thank you. This will be our final question. Can you talk to us about what you're able to do or have been doing to address mental health improvement? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, my sister teaches history at Annapolis High School, and I hear the stories about both kids coming out of COVID, kids during COVID, and also just kids that are attached to their devices all the time. And I'm sure that you'll hear from Lisa Rodvian about her experience as a teacher as well, that the mental health crises among young people is just skyrocketed in recent years, but not just young people. And we created, for the first time with the school district, the Anne Arundel County Public Schools and the government do not always talk to each other, believe it or not. We write the checks, but we don't run it. But we were able to create a joint mental health task force where our mental health agency that does wonderful work, including our crisis response teams that we've expanded with the police department and mental health providers. They go together during crises. They've created this mental health task force so that they're uniting and bringing their forces together. We've expanded funding for just about every mental health service that there is in the county. We get some state funding for it as well. But there's a project that I'm very excited about, which is Crownsville Hospital, which we have just gotten the agreement that we're going to be able to transfer. It'll become a county property. It's abandoned now. It's the place where America showed how badly in the past that we dealt with mental health issues when it was open. And it's the place in Anne Arundel County, the green heart in the geographic center of our county, I believe, where healing can take place in the presence of nature. And you're going to see when we turn it into Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park, you are going to see mental health services, you're going to see researchers coming in and using those buildings, and that's going to be a place where we begin to heal. But we have so much work to do, and there's nothing more important than that. Thank you.
Jessica here.
So the last several years have been incredibly difficult for folks. Not being able to be in school, not being able to play sports, not being able to see your friends, being isolated, not being able to see your grandchildren, not being able to see, it has taken its toll. And so many of the policies that were put in place exacerbated that. I think we are actually only just beginning to see the many mental health ramifications that will occur and have occurred from the policies over the last couple of years. I was very much advocating for folks to be able to play their sports and be able to talk to their coaches and have these outlets, because we can see it. The average age of opioid overdoses was dropping. So younger and younger people were getting addicted to opioids earlier on. We're seeing it now with calls to the warm line still climbing in the county. And I'm glad people are using those services, but it is an indication that we have so much work to do. I was proud to co-sponsor a resolution at the county council to expand the number of crisis beds in Crownsville to double the size. Unfortunately, that resolution was not successful in the county and did not have the support of the administration, but we will continue working and we will continue expanding as much as we possibly can to give folks the tools they need and the support they need when they're in crisis and then when they're in recovery. There is a recovery walk actually coming up in September. Hopefully I will see you all there. And if anybody has any other ideas of things that you would like to see, things that would be helpful, please let us know, because so many times, the best ideas come from you all. So thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Rodkin.
Thank you. I'd actually like to just let you know that I have been a champion for mental health even before the pandemic. One of the first amendments that I made to our very first budget was to increase the number of school counselors. While the pandemic did, in fact, make the mental health crises for young people worse than it already was, it was underway before COVID. I already had regularly students that were attending inpatient mental health treatment. Since COVID, that number of students has skyrocketed, and we have made important investments in our health department and in mental health services, and we're continuing to increase those resources in public schools. The county executive mentioned some of the work that we're doing at Crownsville State Hospital Center. And what my colleague on the council didn't mention about this increased number of beds resolution is that it was actually geared towards one and only one provider, would not have had a competitive bidding process. So in a way, it felt like we were giving something away without looking at all the possible options. One of the pieces of legislation that I'm particularly proud of addresses firearm suicide. It's the number of gun deaths in the county. Of the number of gun deaths in the county, 2/3 of them are firearm suicides. And I passed a piece of legislation that requires gun retailers to, when they sell a firearm, to provide mental health resources, because in the immediate weeks and months after a person purchases a firearm, their chances of being of succumbing to suicide, death by suicide by firearm, increase almost 100-fold. So it's a very opportune time to make sure you're putting resources in someone's hand so they can address any mental health issues that they have, give them all the resources that they need at a critical time.
Thank you. Mike Pantelides.
Thank you. Mental health is obviously a big challenge, but I want to start off on something positive, which is a change we've had in the perception and acceptance of people that are struggling with drug addiction and mental health issues. It wasn't like that when I was growing up, and for many people as well. So I want to highlight a couple of things that I did as mayor, and then talk about things Anne Arundel can do as well. One of the things we did is we started a Safe Stations program when I was mayor within County Executive Steve Shue. What that was is we turned all of our police and fire stations into a place where people could come and seek treatment, no questions asked. So before, if you would come to a police station and say, I'm a drug addict and I have drugs on me, they have a fear of getting arrested. We implemented this program and it expanded across the county and other places, jurisdictions as well. In terms of crisis response, one of the things we did is we worked with Anne Arundel County, who has a great crisis response team. Jen Corbett and her group are fantastic. I think we should definitely expand that program as well. I think the county police officers should be trained in crisis intervention, which is 8 hours, which I know a number of officers are, but not everyone is right now. And I think we have to look at, like I said, drug addiction and mental health, expanding those services for people, and what else can we do to help people that are suffering from it. Kids that were in lockdown, that weren't able to play sports, more after-school programs, more jobs and opportunity. The more we can get kids social and engaging with the community, the better they're going to be. So I think it's an extremely important issue, and it's something that's going to be a top priority if I'm elected.
Thank you. We are going to this evening. I think civic engagement like this is extremely important for effective government. Unless we understand and know what it is that you want the government to do, we're going to shoot from the hip and do what we think. So it's very important for us to hear from you. So thank you for being here to have conversations, and I look forward to continuing conversations. One of the things that I'm especially proud of, my opponent here mentioned that he had open door sessions once a month. I meet with constituents every single day. I've met with constituents earlier today to talk about a stoplight that they need on Generals Highway, and I've been lobbying for that stoplight, and we finally are getting that stoplight. I think one of the best things that I bring to the council is my work ethic. I show up every day. I look at the issues that folks are concerned about. I meet with all different kinds of communities. One of the things that's really notable about Anne Arundel County is the difference between the wealthiest and those that have the least in our county. And I've spent a lot of effort working with those that have the least, because our county rises when we can uplift those who are struggling the most. And while I do believe that hard work matters, I also believe that you have to have opportunities to work hard. And if we don't have things like public transportation in place for people to get to good jobs, and we don't have good public schools so people can get the education and training they need, we're not providing opportunities. So those things are, I believe, are critical. They may not be as much on your radar for, folks that are, retirement and looking back at their careers where you've done very hard work. But you also see your children and your grandchildren and maybe your great-grandchildren and the struggles that they're facing, the high cost of housing and how difficult it is for young people to get out on their own. And if we continue to say, we have to strike the balance. We have to make the balance between leaving our green spaces intact, but also creating housing. We have over 10,000 people in this county on waiting list for some kind of housing support. And that says people aren't housed. I know that it's a concern about school capacity, but honestly, as a teacher, I would rather have one extra student in my class who has a place to live than a student who does not have a place to live. When it comes down to it, housing matters. And people aren't moving here. Well, people move here for all different kinds of reasons, but families move here because there are jobs here for them. And if there are jobs here for them, that means they need places to live. And if we want to take a bite out of traffic, we can't make those families commute from Baltimore City and Baltimore County and Prince George's and Howard County. They need places to live in Anne Arundel County. We still have work to do on our public transportation. And density allows us to do that. When you have, a cluster of housing units, then you have more people that are going to hop on a different kind of transit. So there's lots of work to be done. I'm very proud of the work that I've done so far in terms of public schools, in terms of land use, affordable housing, taking care of our environment. And I'm proud that I have the endorsement of the fire department, the teachers union, and the Sierra Club. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Well, first I want to thank the League of Women Voters, Heritage Harbor Community Association for hosting this debate, and most importantly, all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. I want to close just summarizing what we had talked about earlier. I'm running for office because I have a passion for helping people and a record of getting things done. My top priorities are going to be crime, making sure we have less of it, fully supporting our police department, and thinking of innovative ways we can get crime down. Lowering taxes. It was mentioned earlier, we have maybe the 5th lowest rate, but we still pay high taxes because all of our assessments have gone up in this red hot real estate market. Our property taxes, our income taxes went up. So you're paying more money, even if it is lower than other jurisdictions. People moved here because it was a low tax rate jurisdiction. I think when you look at the other issues that we're facing, if you look at issues like the environment, I have a very strong track record of getting things done and working across the aisle in a bipartisan fashion. It's something I'm very proud of that I was able to accomplish as mayor. I also think we need to do a lot more to help bring jobs and grow the economy. It's one of the biggest issues I hear from people. I'm afraid my kid's not going to have a job here. Where are the good, high-paying jobs? So I think in the education system, promoting vocational opportunities. Where I work, the number one issue I hear from businesses is we can't find people to work. So getting people involved in the trades, getting people involved in cybersecurity, we have to do more to train the next generation and the workforce to come here. The other big issue that I think we really have to deal with is mental health, which we talked about earlier. It's such an important issue, and I'm glad it's finally getting the attention that it deserves from all of us. This was a great debate. We didn't have time to answer everything, so I'm going to stay by afterwards to talk with all of you about any issues or concerns that you might have. I would just say, in terms of voting for me, look, I have a passion for it. You can trust me to do what I say because I've done it before. I live here with my wife and son. It's where I want to raise my family, and I think we can do a lot better. Thank you.
So none of us can say what the next 4 years will bring in terms of challenges, but there are 4 things that I am sure of. One is that we in the county have built a dedicated, battle-tested team of public servants that can handle any crisis. We also have better informed community associations and better organized community associations and nonprofit organizations than we ever have before. We also have a stronger business community than ever, and we have better relationships with our state and federal partners than ever. So I can honestly tell you that I never intended to run for office. I stepped up at a time when my county needed a change of direction and nobody else was stepping up. I'm running for a second and last term because the residents of our county and the institutions that serve them have come together and created plans for our future. And I think they need a steady hand to implement those plans. So I will make sure that the region plans that are, and the community-driven region plans and the general development plan that calls for them are implemented. I will implement the Green Infrastructure Master Plan, the Multimodal Transportation Plan, the Blueprint for Education, which we haven't even talked about tonight. We will also implement the recommendations of our opioid intervention team, our gun violence intervention team, and our mental health task force. Thanks to my partnership with Governor Hogan, the abandoned Crownsville Hospital will become the Crownsville Hospital Park, Memorial Park. And I also just want to say that I respect my opponent in this race, but I've seen the impact of the agenda that she's offering. It's the same agenda that my predecessor offered, a man who I also respect. So when you promise the voters that you'll deliver major tax cuts and that you'll pay for it with accelerated growth, governing becomes virtually impossible. The political donors that offer the growth end up making the land use decisions with disastrous results. Morale plummets, services decline in the institutions that suffer from the cuts. That's why I was so enthusiastically endorsed by the organizations representing our police, our firefighters, our public works heroes, and our environmental advocates. And I was also endorsed when I was the challenger. I'm also endorsed by our senators, all of our senators, all of our congressional representatives, the mayor of Annapolis, and I believe the future governor of the state of Maryland, Wes Moore. And I will work with these public officials and these organizations to deliver for our county. So I am here tonight to ask for your vote, regardless of your political affiliation. Please go to pittmanforpeople.com to find out more about our campaign and events that are coming up. And thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Now we know what happens.
A huge thank you to you all for coming out this evening, to the League of Women Voters, to Heritage Harbor for hosting. Look, if we've learned anything over the last 4 years, it's that local leadership matters. Who your county council member is, matters. Who your county executive is, matters. And I'm sorry, but a steady hand is not good enough. It is not good enough to react to problems as they arise. The job of the county executive is to anticipate problems and to provide meaningful solutions with the community. Proactive, common sense, innovative leadership. That's what we need. The last 4 years, with the $300 million in increases and the 12% increase in your income tax and the circumventing of the voter-imposed property tax cap, has gotten us a 5.1% increase in violent crime year over year from 2021 to 2020. It's gotten us a 45% increase in gun crimes, a 42% increase in gun homicides. 6% of our high school students are proficient in geometry and algebra. 6, single digits, 6. We have more than 300 vacancies for teachers right now, and we can't get our kids to school efficiently. It is not enough to have a steady hand, but we can change that trajectory. Let's give our police the funding, the training, and the tools they need to keep our communities safe, to make the communities safer, and to get criminals off the street. Let's make sure together, let's partner with the school system so that the money is getting into the classrooms and we can focus on our children's education in the classrooms so that they can be successful doing that. Let's increase our services for mental health. Let's take a hard look at that budget. Let's eliminate the wasteful spending, find the efficiencies. Let's make sure that the county government is working for you. This November, you have a choice. Okay, you've seen my record over the last 4 years. I've passed more legislation than any other council member on the council, and I've done it from the council minority. That means I need a bipartisan vote on every single piece of legislation. Proactive leadership. You have a choice. You can pick problem solving and hardworking, or you can pick status quo. You can pick higher taxes and dangerous communities and inefficient government. So together, we can fix this. I ask for your vote on November 8th. I thank you so much for your time this evening. I am going to also stick around for the rest of the evening to chat with anyone who didn't get to ask a question or didn't have your question asked out to the community. Have a great evening. If you need to, my website is jessicahare.com. And actually, if you all would like to reach out, my email address is electjessicahare@gmail.com, and I do answer that personally. So please go ahead and send me a note if you've got a question. Thank you.
A round of applause for our candidates. Closing remarks by Alexa Dorsey, the Vice President of the League of Women Voters for Anne Arundel County.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our forum for this evening. But before you leave, I would like to take a moment to thank those who made this evening possible. First of all, like several of the candidates, I want to thank you, the audience, for your taking the time and making the effort to come out this evening. We admire your respect for the election process and your commitment as informed voters. Second, I'd like to acknowledge some of the many volunteers who organized and coordinated this event. First of all, Mary Gunther, our moderator for this evening. We appreciate the effort that she put in. We have a question review panel. I have Debbie Chesson, Bill Thompson, and Belinda Topchian. The timekeepers, Delia Miller and Kathy Larner Beckett. Sorry, the voter services team from the League of Women Voters, Vera Harath and Vicki Jordan. The Heritage Harbor Civic Association, Vicki Hutchinson and Dee Dee Mahaffey, and then our videographer, Jerry Clinton. And finally, thanks to the candidates for their participation and for their commitment to public service. So let's give them one more round of applause.